Happy Saturday. Welcome in an absolutely loaded slate across the board here today. We're going to do our best to point you in the right direction, break down a few games in a lot of sports, including UFC 301 coming up later today. We're going to break some of those fights down for you. Let's not forget, we do have one NBA playoff game tonight in round two as Minnesota's taking on the champs, Denver. We're going to have the one and only Bryan Power. Is that right? Does that say we brought Bryan Power on? Okay. Bryan Power coming on to talk NBA. We also have Major League. It says Bryan Power again. Is he? Okay. Bryan Power again, going to talk Major League Baseball. So we're going to get him on. And we also are going to break down some Kentucky Derby. It is race day, the 150th edition of the Kentucky Derby. And our friend Sean Alvarez jumping on here to lay it out for you, tell you how to put those tickets together. Going to be a huge, and I mean huge, profitable day here across the sports betting landscape. So let us start first and foremost with the one and only Kyle Anthony in the house, ready to go with UFC 301. It was funny, Kyle, we were just scrambling here going, wait a minute, the fights are in Brazil. Like, is it the normal time? Like, what the hell time does this card start? But for those of you interested, we learned that it's Rio's just an hour difference from the East Coast. So I think we're good to go here. I think we'll expect the usual 10 o'clock, primetime card here. But what are your initial thoughts of this card here tonight?
I think it's pretty good. I definitely think it's pretty good when there's an opportunity to, put our money in strong positions on these pay-per-views, which always, I guess, people are going to be a little bit more excited about it. A lot more recognizable names. We have done well on high-level cards, and we've done well on cards that you probably don't know many fighters at all. So we're going to keep it rolling here, but I think it's definitely a good spot, and we found some good spots to make some money.
Yeah, let's start right off the bat here with a fight that you are looking to go with here, and we'll leave the Pantoja fight last because that's going to be, of course, the headliner there. But let's talk about Brito and Jack Shore that you're looking at here. I toss up here. I don't know. How are you leaning in this one with Jack and Brito?
Yeah, this one's an interesting fight here. You've got Brito, who is well-rounded fighter, very explosive. On the other side, you've got Jack Shore, who is a grappler with high finishing upside. And the one thing here you got to look at is that this is the second time that Jack Shore is now at flyweight. Now, the first time that he had fought there was about a year ago against Makwan Amirkhani. And, if you go on and just look at like the stats or the rundown of it, he won second round submission, but that first round was really bad look for Jack Shore overall. He got taken down. He got controlled. Makwan was threatening submissions. He won that first round in Makwan, and Makwan does what he normally does. He gasses out in the second round, wasn't able to really do much in the second. Jack Shore jumped on it and found success. And that's kind of really what I kind of find the issue here with Jack Shore is his frame. He's not a big guy. He does, he's moving up in weight. He probably is more fit for bantamweight. And I think that the physicality is going to be an issue. You did see that even the fight prior to the Makwan fight where he fought Ricky Simone. Ricky Simone is very similar to Brito, very, very similar just to his overall look, overall strength, his physicality. And Ricky Simone manhandled him, took him down, controlled him, got the finish. And I think that's kind of how you're going to see this fight because I think that Brito can bully him, muscle him down, take him down, control him. And then if this even plays out on the feet, I really think that Brito's going to have the power advantage. I think he's going to land the more damaging shots. He's going to have all of the advantages that you're looking for. And then also the other side of this is that really, the competition level here is not good. And that's something you always got to look at here. And, it's not always going to be you look at the, who beat this guy in MMA math, but you've got Brito, who has 4 straight finishes, has beat Andre Feely and Jonathan Pierce, who are definitely decent enough guys. But Jack Shore is 6-1 in the UFC, and only one guy out of those 7 fights is still even in the UFC. So that just shows really terrible, at least competition level here. I like Brito, but I like Brito inside the distance. It's around plus 120, plus 115. I think he gets the job done, and I actually think it's going to be in brutal, brutal fashion.
So you're expecting Brito, I mean, it's going to be pretty much, he's going right after Jack early and often in here. So if he survives that onslaught, how do you live bet this here? Do you think it goes no more than 2 rounds? I mean, do you think he survives Jack Shore?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely Brito. I think 3 of the 4 were in the first round. So definitely high equity when you're looking at just that first round opportunity, the first round type of finish. But definitely you can see Brito slow down a little bit. And that could be where Shore could find something and sink something in late in the fight. But I do think that those first rounds at a high clip, Brito is going to hurt him. Brito's going to win those first 2 rounds. And if he doesn't put him away, as long as he survives that 3rd round, I think that he can get either the decision or find that finish early. So it definitely is going to be some fireworks flying early in that fight.
I love it. Yeah, no, it should be don't blink. It's one of those fights. Don't blink. But any of those props that are going to give you maybe ends in the first round, not a bad way to look either there. Kyle Anthony joining us here. Last call on this Saturday. Shout out to Ray in the house. Anthony Thornhill. Drabaka 42. Been looking in the obituaries for you, my man. Where the hell you been here? Brahma B in the house as well. Shout out to Instagram. Hungry Howie hanging with us on a Saturday. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Follow us for those of you on IG. We appreciate you here. Kyle Anthony talking UFC here, guys. 301 coming up a little bit later tonight. We'll talk some NBA, Major League Baseball, not to mention the Kentucky Derby. We got a couple of horses you're going to want to keep an eye on for a little bit later today. But you're going to be listen, it's in Brazil, and we have got an interesting fight here with Pantoja and Usyk. I have heard a lot of people talk this week here, Kyle. It is about split down the middle as it goes. Pantoja on one side, Usyk on the other. Are these guys this close?
I actually do not think. I actually think this line, even at this point, is still too short. I really think this could be an opportunity for Pantoja on home soil to really go out and dominate. Usyk has good boxing. He's got good opportunity to kind of work up the outside. He's got some good grappling. He has some good things. Probably his only advantage is going to be utilizing his jab, working on the outside a little bit, quicker developing combinations. But where he struggles the most is really what Pantoja does good. And it's just really moving forward, pressure, getting in his face, making it dirty, getting, dirty boxing, clinching, looking for takedowns. That I just don't think is something that really Usyk is going to be able to handle here. The other part is that Usyk leaves his head on the center line consistently, very consistently, a guy that just can be hittable, although he just hasn't faced the competition that people can really capitalize on those. If you look at just the overall just advantages, I think it all goes to Pantoja here, or the grappling advantage, the durability advantage, the physicality advantage, experience advantage. I mean, so many things here. Plus, you have 5-round experience for Pantoja. The last 2 fights, he went 5 rounds, have that advantage. This is the first time Usyk has had to have that opportunity to fight for 5 rounds. Plus, the durability side. Yes, Pantoja 27-5. Those 5 losses all came by decision. So he's a guy that also can't get finished. He's very tough to put away. And one of the things that, I feel like people are kind of looking past a little bit is I think this is, and I've said this on a couple different shows at WagerTalk, I do this rise for Steve Usyk is really just one of the worst rises to a title that I have seen. I mean, you can't really fight much lower level guys and get to a title than what Steve Usyk did. And just quickly going over it, it's, 3 fights ago, he's only been in the UFC for about a year and change. And he fought David Dvorak. David Dvorak's on an 0-3 run in the UFC. He beat Alessandro Costa. Costa was new to the UFC and was 1-1, and it was short notice, and it was a competitive fight, but Usyk just kind of sneaked it out. The last one that he fought, which got him into this title opportunity, was against Matt Chanel. Matt Chanel can get knocked out by a gust of wind. This guy has no chin. He has lost 8 times. 7 of them he's been finished in. And now he gets the opportunity to fight for a title. They're shipping him to Brazil. I think that's kind of crazy. But if you even go further, outside of the UFC, 2 years ago, roughly around, he fought a guy that was 4-4, 9-8, 6-1 and 13-9. He has not faced anybody even close to the caliber of Pantoja. I think this is one-way traffic. I think that he can go out there and get the job done. Even if quickly you look at who Pantoja beat, former champion Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval twice, who's very tough. Alex Perez, who we just saw is, put away Nicolau. And then also Manel Cap, who's probably going to fight for a title soon. So nowhere near the opportunity here that Usyk has. I think that Pantoja goes out, can run through him, and almost make this look easy, I do think. So I actually like inside the distance here. You can get off the minus 200 number roughly. It's around plus 150. I think he gets the job done, and I think this could be another brutal finish here.
So okay. So you're not buying the hype here on our. You believe he's lucky to even be in this particular spot. Kind of ballsy, right? Heading to the homeland here and fighting him. Pantoja.
Yeah.
Crowd ain't going to be on him. We're looking. It sounds like you think we're going early and often here. Another one of these. Does he make it out of the first couple of fights? The rounds, rather.
Yeah. And also, the division is slightly thin in certain spots here, so they kind of wanted to get fresh blood, new blood in there. They don't want the same kind of recycled guys that have been at the top of the division. So, and Pantoja's beaten a bunch of them also. So this was a spot where it was a great knockout for Matt Schnell, although we're going to see that knockout throughout the lead up on the pay-per-view. But again, many guys have knocked out Matt Schnell, even including Pantoja has knocked out Matt Schnell. Yeah. So there's been a lot of guys that have, and it's just a great clip and a great highlight, but that's about it. That's really about it. Matt Schnell's not very good.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've never met a canvas and didn't like to hit. So it is what it is with that one here. Kyle, let me ask you, too, a lot of questions. You and I talked about it briefly before the show. Can somebody explain to me why they dug up Jose Aldo to fight again? I'm not. Why? Is it like Weekend at Bernie's? Like what is going on? They like hanging out with him at the beach? Like what are we doing? Why is he still fighting? And more or less, why is he this price?
Yeah, I mean, this is a spot where, it's in Brazil, and it does kind of feel like, hey, Aldo's on the card just because, hey, it's in Brazil. It's going to, this is just going to bring a lot of attention, obviously, when you're looking at just a legend that he is. It's just even a couple years ago was his last fight against Merab Dvalishvili. And that was a fight where, he didn't really look that good. He was held up against the fence. It was very lackluster. He lost a very boring decision. He didn't really do much. And now he's fought 3 boxing fights since then. Very low-level guys, more kind of just to do it kind of thing. So I think maybe he could be in shape. I think in all accounts, it does sound like he should be in shape. But we're talking about an aged-out guy here now at this point, and you got somebody like Jonathan Martinez, who is streaking, who is looking very good, 10-3 in the UFC, way younger. I think he's going to have the explosive part. Now, the one part here that is probably the most thing to look at in this fight is going to be the leg kicks, and they're both really, really looking to always hammer away. Martinez, 2 of his last 3 wins do come by leg kick finish, so he will spam the leg kicks, and that's what Aldo does as well, too. So he could possibly check some of these and make it go further. I do think this is something that does get to the scorecards here. I don't think a finish is coming, but I do like what is it? Martinez, it was plus 155. I do like Martinez plus 155 via points. I think he can just kind of get enough, do enough. But with that being said, winning a decision against the Brazilian in Brazil is some sketchy business. So I do lean that way, but I would tread lightly on that there. I'm a little tread lightly.
If I'm Martinez, you better make sure you got your hand raised before it gets to the judges, my man, because that is going to be some sketchiness. But he seems like a winner because I also saw Anthony Smith on this card. Like, so you like being punched in the face as opposed to behind the microphone. Like, what are you doing, dude? At this point, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand. Are they that hard up for a check here? Like, I don't get why he's doing it. He's much better, as a commentator. What are we doing here?
Right? So, I mean, even with this one here, this is another one where I feel like they're setting up the Brazilian in Vitor Petrino. They're setting him up for an opportunity to, possibly, he's an undefeated prospect. They think very highly of him. I think the UFC is really have set him up over his last few fights with very favorable matchups. He's been a monster favorite. He's a monster favorite here again. So I do think that, he's going to have the physicality. He's going to be able to get the takedowns. He's going to be able to do certain things. The only thing there I do think, though, is that Anthony Smith has jiu-jitsu. He's very good off of his back, where Petrino is just kind of a bruiser, kind of can bulldoze forward. So this may play out on the feet, and I do lean this going to the decision. I think that this is a spot where Petrino can do enough where he can get there. He can land the shots. Petrino is very low volume, but he can be damaging. And I think that, you've even seen, Smith, even the fight that he got absolutely brutally knocked out by Roundtree, it was in the third round. It was actually one that was at least getting further into the fight here. So I actually lean Petrino here by decision. That's plus 240. I think that it can get there. He's going to do enough. And Smith, I think, is a shell of himself at this point. I don't think he should even be in there. But I think, again, the paycheck's there. He's a company guy. And then they really want to set Petrino up here. So I think it goes Petrino via decision.
When you, I think it's time you reevaluate where you're at in your career when you become the guy that is setting up younger fighters to look good. Like, dude, at this point, man, maybe just go, being punched in the face isn't what it's all cracked up to be at this point. I had a good run. My goodness here. But we do have, we got plenty of fights here tonight. You're locked and loaded on this card here. What do you got rolling over at WagerTalk.com?
Yeah, so I have a 5% up right now. We've cashed our last 5 plays, as well as over the last 12 events. I've cashed 10 of them. We're up roughly over 30 units on the year. So feeling really good, seeing the board well. Got some plus money, as always, that I'm looking to put our money in strong positions with some good value behind it. So I have 4 plays up right now. One of them was William Gomez, which was it ended up it was at plus money. It ended up being canceled, which I'm kind of happy that it was, because he looked terrible on the at weigh-ins, and that's kind of the doctors called it, so it is what it is. But we do have 4 plays there, feeling good about it, and we're going to keep it rolling this night.
I absolutely love it. All right, Kyle Anthony, man, best of luck here tonight. Cash that 5% available right now on his page at WagerTalk.com. And shout out to those of you joining us live here today on Last Call here, Wager Talk. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Become part of the Wager Talk TV family if you haven't done so. Those that joining us via YouTube, whether it be on our Vertical Shorts channel there or in the usual crew, always a pleasure to see you there. Titan CT in the house, Ray, putting everyone into shape there. Anthony Thornhill, shout out to you guys here. We've got plenty to get to here today, including some Kentucky Derby winners coming your way. It is an absolute D-Gen Saturday here. We got a little something for everybody. And when I mean a little something for everyone, it doesn't get any more a little something than BP in the house, Bryan Power. I had to read the monitor like 3 times. I was like, wait a minute, he's here talking NBA and Major League Baseball? The answer is absolutely he is. Why? Because he's absolutely crushing it here, certainly in the NBA and Major League Baseball. So BP, pleasure to see you here, man. 1 NBA game here today. Second round going to be underway. Loaded slate in baseball. So if you have any questions on the games, drop them into the chat here, guys. We're going to run through as many of them as we can, but we'll start with the NBA, BP. Does it get any better here than what many people think is going to be just an absolute all-out war of a series between Denver and Minnesota here? Game 1 tonight. It was 5. I'm seeing 4.5s now. 208.5 as a total, which is also interesting here. Both teams fairly rested, ready to roll here in this one. How are you breaking out this game? How are you breaking out the series?
All right, we'll start with the series, and then we'll go to game 1. Let's just back up, talk about what these teams have done previously against each other. Split 4 regular season meetings. 3 of those were played after St. Patrick's Day. So a lot of times when we talk about these regular season meetings, Joe, it's old history. It was months ago. Well, in the case of these 2 teams, most of the meetings have taken place in the last 2 months. Again, I said they split those 4. Wouldn't you know, the over and the under was a 2-2 split as well. And of course, second straight year, these teams meet in the playoffs as well. Last year, the Nuggets won in 5 games in a first-round series. But afterwards, Nuggets players, and this was actually after the entire playoffs were done, several Nuggets players were quoted as saying that their hardest series of the entire championship run was the round 1 matchup with Minnesota. Remember, Minnesota had a chance to force overtime in the closeout game, but Edwards missed a shot. Minnesota's a better team this year, Joe. I don't think there is. I mean, look, it's hard to get unanimous agreement on anything these days, but I think it is unanimously agreed upon that Minnesota is a better team in 2023, 2024. This roster, you look at it up and down, it was constructed very much with the idea of beating Denver. Not a surprise, because where did the GM come from? Denver. The T-Wolves, they've got the depth, they've got the size to bother Denver all throughout this series. And I think the key here, when you look at who's going to advance, is Denver, number 1 in the league in 2-point field goals made, but Minnesota, number 1 in 2-point field goal percentage defense. So often when we break down basketball, whether it's pro or college, we talk about the 3-point variance. But honestly, you look at these teams, Joe, it's inside the arc where I think things could be decided. And one key note for prop players, I want to throw this out as well. Jokic, in the 4 regular season meetings, he only averaged 4.3 assists per game against Minnesota. That's half of his season average. The way Minnesota likes to defend him is taking away his passing, and as strange as it may sound, force him to be a scorer. So you look at the series here, and if you do like Minnesota, I would play them plus 500 to win in 6 games. Here's why. They're plus 170 to win the series. That's kind of cheap, but Joe, I mean, do we really think Minnesota's going to win the series in 5 games or less? That would be incredible. And I probably wouldn't trust the T-Wolves on the road in a game 7. So if they win this series, it's probably going to be in 6 games. And I would much rather take plus 500 than plus 170. So if you're looking for a series price, if you got a little couch change to throw around and you want to tie up some money for the series, I would play Minnesota in 6 games. I think that's a tremendous value if you like the T-Wolves, and I know a lot of people do.
It's interesting because it feels like Minnesota constructed this team to beat Denver.
Yeah.
The size, the athleticism of this team here, throwing Rudy Gobert out there, Cat, Jaden McDaniels. They're all huge, right? I mean, you got a couple of 7-footers, and McDaniels, I think, is even like 6'10", somewhere in that ballpark. He's a big dude also, and we've seen how they can wreak havoc on teams. Listen, we just saw 2 guys, for the most part, right? And Anthony Davis and LeBron give this Denver team fits. Yes, they won 4 games to 1, BP, but did that series feel like a eye-opener for you, for Denver, and going, wait a minute, Minnesota's much deeper. They're just as big. They can cause just as many problems. Plus, they don't have to just rely on Ant here the whole time. So it sounds like you're thinking this is Minnesota's time here because you got them. You don't even think it goes 7. You think it ends in 6.
Well, yeah, again, I mean, let's just think about it, Joe. If it did go to 7 games, I don't know if you would want to take Minnesota to win in that situation on the road. So if they advance, it's going to be in 6 games. But let's talk about game 1 tonight because it very much relates to the first round series you just brought up, Joe, between Denver and the Lakers. And I know you love my first quarter bets. The bottom line is this. Denver has the second best first quarter net rating in the league at plus 14.8. I am still scratching my head at what was going on in the first halves between the Nuggets and the Lakers. Denver only covered 1 first quarter spread. And of course, they did not cover a single first half spread. They were 0-5 against the number in the first halves, despite winning 4 games. Maybe they just didn't respect the Lakers and knew they could come back. But I'm pretty sure they respect the T-Wolves and what they bring to the table. Michael Malone, I think he's going to have a real impetus tonight, Joe, on Denver starting strong. Maybe some early jitters on the road for Minnesota. Remember, this franchise has not played a second-round series in 20 years. Okay, I couldn't even tell you what I was doing 20 years ago. I think I just graduated college, but I digress. Chris Finch, the head coach, let's not bury the lead, Joe. He just had to have emergency knee surgery for Minnesota. Could that be a distraction? And it's worth noting while Minnesota swept the Suns, they were trailing at the half in 2 of those games. So I know I said T-Wolves is in 6 is the best value for the series. But for game 1 tonight, I'm looking Denver first quarter, Denver first half. I think this team knows it needs to get off to a good start. I don't think you can continuously fall behind and come back. That's just not a blueprint for success. So you can get them in the first quarter, -1, -1.5. You get them first half, -2, -2.5. Shop around there.
So here's the problem that I've got with Minnesota, and I know I'm seeing Ray and a few others loving the Wolves. Titan CT says he's played the Wolves, took the 4.5 a couple of days ago. I don't think it's going to move a whole lot from where it is right now, but here's the problem, and I think we'll learn it early. When it comes to the final 2 minutes of a close game, Minnesota cannot be trusted. Minnesota was not good in crunch time at all this year. In fact, I believe they ranked in the bottom third, 23rd, 22nd, 23rd, somewhere in that point, BP. You're talking about a Nuggets team that lives for crunch time, and they have proven it time and time again. They proved it again. You know, you got the big man there, 33 points, 11 boards, 4 assists, shooting 59% from the floor and 40% from deep. He is made for crunch time. Are you worried that Minnesota, they're Minnesota. This is a much different test than Phoenix. And come crunch time, we know one team usually shows up and the other doesn't. Are you worried they don't show up in enough games to be able to do this? Because all of them are going to be close, are they not?
Probably, yeah. Phoenix just completely melted against this Minnesota defense. We need to talk. I mean, Minnesota's defensive rating, Joe, there's a larger gap between them and the number 2 team in defensive rating, which is Orlando. The gap between those two is larger than the gap between number 2 and number 13. That's how good Minnesota's defensive rating is. But you're right. Denver in crunch time, I don't think is going to be intimidated the same way that Phoenix was. So, yes. Down the stretch, in crunch time, I do favor Denver. But again, for tonight's game, I just think because of the way that last series played out, Joe, Malone's going to have this team looking to come out strong. You just don't want to keep falling behind. Yes, they can do it. They prove they can do it. They're the more battle-tested team, but you just don't want to keep falling behind. It's not a recipe for success. It just is not. So I think Denver, and it's a low number at home. I mean, I talked about Denver's net rating in the first quarter has been incredible all year. At home, they outscore teams by about 5 points in the first half for the year. That's what made last round so head-scratching. It's not like, okay, here's a team that somehow just won a bunch of games where they were trailing at halftime. This is a good first-half team, by and large, for the year. I think they get back to that tonight. I think, do you feel a little bit that there's a little too much love in the market for Minnesota? I know that's, your thing. You're always trying to put your finger into the wind and when maybe the market swung too far one direction. I think maybe coming into game 1, Minnesota's a little overvalued, but for the series, they're going to put up a heck of a fight. I just think Denver starts strong in game 1.
Well, there's no doubt the public's all over Minnesota. I'm showing in a lot of spots close to 80% of the tickets are on Minnesota in this game 1 here, but the money's about 50-50 right now. So, the public is certainly backing the Timberwolves in this game 1, and some of the matchups absolutely favor them. I mean, there are some in the chat here. I know Brahma B there thinks maybe you're going to play Minnesota under 49.5 in the first half. You talked about the first quarter opportunities there. 209. Some folks have 209. It's down to 208.5. I don't see the total getting up there either, but it certainly would feel like the Minnesota Timberwolves' personality is defense, and they are going to slow this thing down to a crawl. The only thing I would say is maybe we should be looking at guys like Rudy Gobert and his props, given the fact of what AD did in the paint. to this Denver team, BP. I mean, they owned Denver in the paint. Make no mistake about it. This feels like a series in which I'm looking to back Rudy Gobert. 13.5 points in this one. Listen, AD feasted in the paint. Gobert is going to feast in the paint here as well. I don't think they're going to go small against Denver.
No, rebound props over is what I really like with Gobert to that point, Joe. I really like Gobert over his rebound props. I think he's going to be the series leader in rebounds here, factoring in both teams. I think I completely concur. I think he's going to have, a big series in the paint. And I talked about that. The roster construction, Minnesota, look where the GM came from. He knew what team would be at the top of the mountain, what team they had to beat, and Minnesota is uniquely constructed to handle this Denver team. So Gobert over props,
I agree.
Especially rebounds.
Yep. I wouldn't look at whatever his points and rebound prop is too, and I would look to go over there. I don't think Denver's going to be susceptible to big men, I think, for as long as they're in these playoffs here. Denver has won all 5 of its playoff round openers since last season. They did beat the Lakers 114-103 in game 1 last round. The Timberwolves have certainly played them tough. Should be an interesting game 1 here tonight in the NBA. All right, shout out to those guys joining us. I see Mike Scott's got some baseball questions here. Titans CT. Julio in the house, likes the Dallas money line against the Thunder game 1. Dallas is looking pretty impressive here, BP. What they did, not offensively. We've been screaming for how long how nobody wants to give Kyrie any credit, but the dude is an absolute monster right now. He is really the backbone of that team. He's coaching dudes on the sideline like he's talking guys up like he is. When did he become the consummate excellent team, the team member that you want that is rising everybody else up? That's exactly what he's doing. I think if OKC beats Dallas, and I don't think they are, but OKC is going to have, they're going to be tough to beat because I think Dallas is going to give them more competition than they have had all season long. This is a huge test for OKC. I don't think it's as big a test for Dallas. Hopefully Kyrie has learned at this point that the world is round, not flat. Look, I have a soft spot for Kyrie. I have a soft spot for Kyrie in my heart. I'll never forget when he hit that big 3, obviously the 2016 finals. So, look, I followed his career. He's great with Kyrie and Doncic, Joe. This is a team that could beat anybody in any round. And it's interesting because I really think, when you look at like numbers and you have power ratings, Dallas, you've got to kind of throw out maybe the first half of their season, which is sort of weighing some of their numbers down because, when they made those trades, this became an elite defensive team. Ooh. Their net rating is right up there with the best in the league. And people were worried, remember, about Oklahoma City, even in round 1 against the Pelicans, who didn't even have Zion because it's a young team who's a top seed. They haven't been there before. So, it is a tough series. And the odds makers, the way they have this one priced, Joe, as well. What OKC is opened, they opened -3. I think they've taken some money, though, at -3.5. 3.5.
I'm not ready to jump on that spread quite yet. It'll be interesting, the layoff, because OKC's had such a long layoff, and they're not starting that series till Tuesday.
Yep, should be interesting here. We still also have one game 7 coming up, guys, tomorrow. Don't forget Orlando and Cleveland, the series nobody asked for, but apparently we're getting 7 games of it because the NBA hates us. So that's coming up here tomorrow, but plenty of Major League Baseball action here today, and we do have some horses you're going to want to consider for the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby coming up. Sean Alvarez is going to join us here. But BP, let's start with Major League Baseball. Huge slate here. Can't believe I'm thinking about actually betting on a Oakland A's and Marlins game, but that's where we're at this point. You have an interesting first 5 play here today. You're going to break down for us. What are you thinking here on the slate? You're going Toronto, Washington, is it?
Yes. By the way, with that Oakland game, Joe, who would have thought on May 4th, we'd all be looking at Oakland as a favorite and saying, oh, that looks attractive. What a world we're living in here. But yeah, Jays Nationals, I want to lay the half run in the first 5 with Toronto. I know the Nationals took last night's series opener. It was 9-3. But let's point out, Jays were leading 3-1 after 5. Washington scored 4 in both the 7th and 8th to take that game. And I like back in the Jays' first 5 laying half a run here because Kevin Gausman's on the mound. Last 3 starts, what's he done? 0.96 ERA, 1.71 whip. And who has he faced in that stretch? Royals, Yankees, Dodgers. 3 good teams. Nationals, they have won 6 of 8. Another surprise team, Joe. I don't think anyone thought the Nationals were going to be a tough out, but here they are. They're on a nice streak. But Jake Irvin, when he faced the Dodgers not that long ago, gives up 6 runs on 12 hits. I think the starting pitching matchup, too big of a mismatch to ignore. I would lay the half run again with Toronto first 5 minus 120. I think that's a pretty decent price.
Ooh, liking Toronto early and often there against Washington. Was it crazy, BP? Because it's funny talking about the Marlins and the A's. I actually laid the 1.5 with Oakland for shits and giggles. And ended up sweating my ass off at the end there after they gave up 1 late. And I'm like, I can't believe. And cursed myself for a good 35 minutes going, what in the world was I thinking? How in the world could I back? And then, of course, when it was over, I was like, yeah, never in doubt. I was all over that one there. We have a few other questions in Major League Baseball coming up. Some interesting games across the board. Hell of a game with the Atlanta and the Dodgers last night. Little extra inning action happening last night, and it was funny. We were talking about this game yesterday on First Pitch, you and I, as Dan was trying out for that Mexican beer softball league. No word on whether he actually made the team yet, but we'll have to see what's going on with that. But we thought maybe, the total was 9.5, and we're going, wow, that's a lot of runs for that game. You looked at the under, and boy, that was 2-1 going late into the night until, of course, Atlanta tied it up, and then for some strange reason, they just, I'm going, this thing is going to fly over the total after we were all convinced it was going to go under. But the Dodgers ended up getting the better of the Braves in game 1, 4-3. What do you think we're going to get in this series? It feels like zigzag all day long with some of the pitching matchups here.
Well, what sticks out to me right away, Joe, in this game, you can get the Atlanta Braves plus half a run in the first 5 at plus money. How many times is that going to happen this season? This is the first time it's happened all season, and there's probably not going to be too many more times that you could do it. I mean, even if you look at full game here, you could get them plus 1.5, minus 130, minus 135. Wow. Again, there are just not many times you're going to find that with the Braves. Now, Tyler Glasnow has been outstanding for the Dodgers, as they expected him to be. And Bryce Elder was a guy that it reached a point last year, Joe. I think you will recall this, where everyone just wanted to fade him. He had a he ridiculously overachieved those first 2 months of the season, and all the signs of regression were all over the profile, and a lot of people made some money fading him. But again, Atlanta, these bats, you can give them a half run in the first 5 at plus money. It plus 1.5, minus 130. Man, again, that is an opportunity, gang, that does not come around very often.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that all day long here. I think grab it while you can, especially with these 2 teams here. Great pitching matchup last night. I didn't think Charlie Morton would be as effective as he was. And Stone was out of his mind, but now you got Glasnow going on against Elder here. Let's see how that works out. I believe Mike Scott in the chat room says, should we keep betting the Giants team total under as they continue to have some issues here? They jumped out in front of the Phillies yesterday, 2-0. It was quick early, and then that was it. Then it became all of a sudden a pitcher's battle and didn't work out all that way. Eventually, the Phillies ended up scoring, but they might have lost a pretty important piece with Trey Turner along the way there. So What are we thinking here? Team total unders with the Giants in this spot on the road. Suarez on the mound against Wynn.
Yeah, that's a good look. And yeah, I was really frustrated. If you tuned into First Pitch yesterday, I gave out the Giants as an underdog. I thought that price was way too inflated. You mentioned the early 2-0 lead, Joe. I was like, all right, here we go. I knew the price was inflated. And then they only scored 1 run the rest of the game. Now, obviously, Mike in the chat knows the Giants over their last 8 games have not gone over 3 runs. Who are they facing today on the mound? Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez has been absolutely ridiculous. Dan, in that Mexican softball league, I could only hope to be as good as Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez, in his last 4 starts, has given up 1 run, despite going 30 innings over there. He's given up 1 run in 30 innings. So he's got a 1.32 ERA for the year, 8.634 whip. That is ridiculous. Keaton Wynn, the pitcher for the Giants, he's been really good in his own right, but we talked about the same thing with Hicks last night, and it didn't matter. So, yeah, I mean, you have to be creative here because the market has quickly decided that Philadelphia was undervalued here. Bet them up. You looked at the WagerTalk odds screen, that number was on the rise. So you have to find a different way to play. I mean, I wouldn't recommend laying 1.5 here. I would play Giants team total under. I think that is a good look just based on the recent form of the Giants hitters and the starting pitcher they are facing. First 5 under is really low. What is it? It's probably 1.5. I haven't not looked, but
yes.
The only issue I would have about a full game under is that Phillies bullpen. Joe, I mentioned that their numbers at home aren't good. 6.67 ERA. So maybe I know it's going to be a sweat for 5 innings, but first 5 under on the Giants, I don't see them, given recent form, getting to Suarez.
Yeah, well, that's great because I had the first 5 under yesterday at 4.5 in that game, and then the Giants got out of nowhere, scoot 2 early runs, and then the Phillies decide to score 3 more there before the 5th inning. So that was great, and then they don't score any runs for the rest of the game. So that was fantastic.
Hate when that happens.
That total is cratering down to 7 right now. So it was 7.5. It was heavily juiced overnight. It's now down to 7 in some spots. So any sort of unders, especially in the team total unders, not a bad way to look. Interesting spot here today as we welcome back the Orioles and John Means, the lefty, making his 2024 debut here. What are we thinking with the Reds who couldn't hit? Shocker. Last night, that game was delayed because of the weather, but ultimately they got shut out. Baltimore wins the opening game 3-0 here. It's certainly a nice price, but how much do we trust the dude and John Means that we're finally getting to see here this year?
Well, this is what I would do. Complete opposite of what we just talked about with the Giants. I'm looking Baltimore team total over here because they're facing Andrew Abbott. Andrew Abbott is a lefty, and the Orioles just kill lefties. It's just that's just the way it is. They're going to put. I think they put up runs today, Joe. That's the way I would do this. That way you could take Means is an X factor. To your point, let's just take him out of the equation. Let's focus on the Baltimore bats. I think the only look for me in this game would be Orioles team total over. Maybe even first. Again, you can look first 5 over if you want. I think that number's 2.5. I think they should score 3 runs in the first 5 innings, no doubt.
Yeah, what do we got? 9, I think, is the total in this one, somewhere in that ballpark, and I think that was also getting bet up here. So even 9.5 wouldn't shock me either in this one here. You mentioned how good Baltimore is, 277 against lefties. I believe that's 4th best in Major League Baseball. The Reds hitting just 224, which is not great. So the over definitely getting love there. And I believe these are 2 of the better over squads, correct? These are, I think these 2 teams have been pretty good to the over this season. 17-13-1 to the over for the Reds, 16-12-3 to the over for the Orioles. Feels like that's where we're gonna be heading in this one here. Also on the card, and I'm seeing some chat room love and questions regarding Schmidt and the Yankees against Detroit. Are we just playing unders in this series? It feels like every game until further notice. It was 8 last night. It's now 7.5. The Yankees are just, They're pathetic. So are we? But so's Detroit. Mize against Schmidt. What are we thinking? Under in this, BP?
Yeah, we talked about it first pitch. Did the Yankees have enough offense to justify that kind of price against the Tigers?
Nope.
And it turned out all they needed was 2 runs to win. But it's their fourth game with 2 runs. 4th straight game for the Pinstripes, scoring only 2 runs. They have just 8 runs total in the last 5 games. They've actually managed to win 2 of those, which is pretty crazy. Now, the Tigers, they've scored 1, 4, and 1 their last 3 games. So, yeah, runs should be scarce here. Mize, the Tigers are 5-0 with him on the mound this year. His whip isn't awesome, but he has a 3.08 ERA. I'm not a huge Clark Schmidt guy. Although the team is 5-1 with him on the mound, you look at some of these scores with these 2 on the mound. There's been some of the games have seen more runs than you'd expect. But there's no real reason to believe the Yankees offense is going to wake up, and the Tigers offense has kind of been in poor form too. It's a low number. So, I would look to the under. And then the bullpens, Detroit's bullpen is outstanding, and the Yankees bullpen pretty good in its own right.
Shout out to Home Wreck Knee Knocker. Outstanding name, my man. I'd like to buy a Val. Let's just see how annoying I can get. You did nail it there, though, BP with the Yankees. Absolutely love it in that one. But I got to go back to the Marlins and the Athletics here today because, believe it or not, look at who's Rogers against Blackburn. Aren't we supposed to just bet Blackburn because the market has done nothing but move towards Oakland overnight? Kind of shocking, right?
Yeah. Miami, look, Joe, you and I talked before the season started. We remembered last year just how fortunate Miami was to finish with the winning record. They had no team had a bigger gap between actual and expected wins than did Miami last year. Regression was inevitable, and it has hit this team hard, 9-25 after last night's loss. And I know there's no home field advantage for the A's, but you look, Blackburn has been outstanding. They're 5-1 with him on the mound. He's their best pitcher, and you referenced Rogers for Miami. What is the Marlins record with him on the mound? 0-6, and it's not a hard luck 0-6 either. When you dig the number, he's got a 1.5 WHIP. So as crazy as it sounds, we joked about it a few minutes ago. Oakland as a favorite seems to be a no-brainer here on Saturday, and I did not think I would be saying that at any point this season.
Yeah, no, neither did I. It's kind of absolutely crazy that's where we're we're out here going. There's some value on Oakland here. It's kind of hard to figure out, but yes, there is here. And also, the Mets and Tampa might have been one of the wildest games that we saw yesterday. Absolutely. The Mets had 3 runs quick, and then they were down 9. Then it was 9, and it just kept going back and forth, that game there. And yet the market seems to be fading both of these teams run-wise. I'm seeing 7.5s now today with Scott and Little on the mound. Are you buying here that we're getting a bit of a pitcher's battle here? It is the Trop, after all, and we don't usually get a ton of runs in the Trop.
Well, I'm really excited to see what Scott's got to offer. This is a top prospect in the Mets organization. They're very high on him. I know people think he's going to be a big strikeout guy. The Rays, credit for them. I did not expect them to win yesterday. They got the job done, but they had a bad bullpen had to use a lot of guys. Yes, a lot of high leverage guys they had to use. So I'm not really confident in this Rays staff getting it done in this spot, Joe. I'm really interested to see what we've got with Scott. Maybe we look at the first 5 under here. That way the Rays bullpen is not in the equation. So that would be maybe the way I look at this one. A much different game than last night, obviously, when the runs came early and often. I think it's going to be a lot lower scoring early tonight.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to this card here today. I'm also looking forward to fading Lopez and backing Boston. Am I crazy with this one? What are you thinking, BP?
The Twins keep winning. I don't know. You know me.
I don't know how. I don't know how.
I am known for coming here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel and just jumping in front of a trade and saying, "Oh no, today's the day that it's all going to go wrong." But I don't know. Like in baseball, like if you look at the projections, a lot like you and I talked about this yesterday, along with Brian Leonard. Minnesota, this 11-game win streak, over half of it is against the White Sox. You have to consider that. You absolutely do. And the White Sox are, by far the worst team in baseball. But I don't know. Like, I kind of was like, well, Boston's a worthy challenger. I came into this weekend wanting to fade the Twins, saying, oh, the win streak's gonna end eventually. But I don't know. They keep winning. I'm gonna wait till they lose, I think, to jump on board and think that maybe after a loss, there's going to be a second loss to follow that. So I'm staying away here. It is an attractive price on Boston, I suppose. What are they, plus 60-ish there on the money line?
That's what I'm thinking. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, if you got some couch change, you want to have some fun before the Derby starts, I guess you can take the Red Sox plus at that fat money line price, which it seems like you want to do. I recognize that smirk.
Yes.
There, Joe.
Yes. Yes, I do, because the whole world seems to love the Minnesota Twins right now, and I ain't buying them at all here. I'm also not buying Dan Dunning in Texas, and I will be backing Waka today with the Kansas City Royals, pretty much a pick-em price. Certainly, I'm going to be backing him in the first 5 here. I think Dunning... he's losing velocity. He is quite fortunate to be where he is right now here and had some of the success early on here. But I think Kansas City at home with Walk on the mound, not a bad look either, BP.
We talked about this yesterday. The market doesn't respect Kansas City yet, and I don't know why. They've got the best run differential in baseball. Again, they've beat up the White Sox a lot. That has to be factored in. But you talk about Dane Dunning, Joe, and I'm in agreement. Dane Dunning was a guy who benefited from run support last year. He was not a good pitcher. He's not a good pitcher right now. I know the team is 4-2 without him on the mound, but he's got a 4.13 ERA. And you look here. All right, last time out, he was great. He had 10 strikeouts. That was against the Reds, though, who half their orders hitting under 200, I think. So, and then what happened the start before that? He got no run support. He lost. And last time out against the Reds was the first time all year he did not give up a home run in a start. That is something to pay attention to as well.
I'm going. I know there was some home wrecking knee knocker looking for some boxing tonight, and there is Canelo is on here tonight, and there is a great preview here that our boxing expert there, Kevin Dolan, did a video on earlier. The link is in the description here below. I also dropped it in the chat for him so he can check that out, because nobody does boxing quite like Kevin Dolan does. So check that out. But yes, I am all about the fading of Dunning. I am all about, we got some horse racing coming up a little bit later. BP, do you dabble in the Derby at all? Or are you just dabbling or dabbing a little bit on the side? What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you, the Derby Day is a very special day for me, Joe. It was a fateful Cinco de Mayo 12 years ago that one woman's life was ruined forever. I'm, of course, talking about my wife, who I met on Derby Day in 2012. We are heading down to the track to, and of course, my wife, a proud owner of a Hoflinger. So, yes, I know more about horses than probably I care to, and I will be betting on the Kentucky Derby. I'm very excited to hear what we've got coming up. Because it's a great day, always Derby Day. So looking forward to it.
Yes. Love it. And we've got an expert coming up. Of course, our good friend Sean Alvarez is going to break it down. BP, you're the best, man. Cash those tickets again. Good luck. You're back in Minnesota all day long here, it sounds like, in the NBA Game 1. Back in Minnesota across the board. So good luck there. Cash those tickets in Major League Baseball, my man. And I thought you were going to say Derby Day is special because of the tranquilizers, but that's a whole different thing. Enjoy yourself there, BP. Always a pleasure to see you, my man. Always a pleasure there.
Does the name Hunter S. Thompson mean anything to you, Joe? By the way, we're 70% in the NBA since April 1st. Check it out, WT.buzz/BP. I will see you again soon, Joe. All right.
Go get him, BP. You rock, man. The guy's absolutely crushing it in the NBA here. So that's why I like to bust his chops, though. He's killing it. Check him out over at WagerTalk.com. All right, Derby fans, and for those of you just jumping in, Jeff, I know you're asking of whether or not we did UFC. We did. We opened the show with Kyle Anthony, who talked some UFC here, a couple of fights. We'll throw those best bets up at the end in case you missed them here. He had a couple of picks in some of the, especially the main event there with Pantoja. So we'll get you those up. But it is Derby Day. It's the 150th damn running of this race. And every year, man, oh man, it seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And Sean Alvarez, who was a huge Mage and Derby winner a year ago, Sean, you were all over it a year ago. And we have not had a lot of chalk in the Derby in quite some time here. There have been like telephone numbers, superfectas, that have come across the board over the last couple of years. And my goodness, expecting that again this year, no doubt. But 20-horse fields are a little interesting and a little tricky, man. Are you fond of this field here? Do you think we could get some really good prices here today? Or do you think the chalk's going to reign true?
I think this field is definitely interesting, kind of based on just kind of what we've seen from these horses in the Derby preps. We haven't really seen, a lot of either one of these kind of, let's say, the horses that we're trying to key or the lower prices that have faced each other yet. So it's kind of I wouldn't say a one-off, but now they're facing obviously the biggest field they're going to face in their career, but it's also probably the deepest field that they've seen in their career so far. So I absolutely think that we can see a price. There's short prices to like, but there's also holes that we can punch in their form. And if you agree with those, punching those holes, and if you punch enough and like other ones, it's definitely a chance to take a shot. I mean, Joe, if you're willing to lay a run and a half with the Oakland Athletics, I mean, I know you're ready to fire in the Derby.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, we've got the bottom half of that board. And quite honestly, too, like, I don't give a rip. Oh, we haven't had, what was it, the 17 post, right? We've never had a horse win from the 17 post. Well, it just so happens your favorite is in the 17 post here, Sean, with Fierceness. And you and I did a show with Marco D'Angelo, the Pony Pundits here on Wager Talk TV. And guys, I would highly encourage you to check it out. Some great stuff in there about today's race card for the Kentucky Derby. Check out the links below. But 17, we all said it. We said it on the show. Everybody seems to think if this horse shows up, everyone else is running for second. But the big question is, does he show up? And from post 17, Sean, that's the problem.
Well, that's definitely, that started off being the problem. But, you can always take kind of those curses, like, with a grain of salt. A few years back, no horse ever started their career as a 3-year-old and went on to win the Kentucky Derby until Justify not only did that, but won the Triple Crown. So, curses and records are meant to be broken. However, with the 9 Encino scratching, the 17 Fiercest will be running from the 16 post. So, you can kind of think of it what you will, but, come up with a reason why you want to bet on somebody or why you don't want to bet on somebody. And, like you said, talking about the favorite and what we liked and what we didn't like about this horse, I seriously think the best race that this horse has run was back in November in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile race. He was able to sit off the pace. They weren't going crazy fast for the fractions that you can run on Santa Anita on big days. And he kind of relaxed and went on with it. He was able to put away a horse named Muth, who, if Baffert wasn't suspended, would, possibly is the co-favorite, probably a little bit shorter price than Sierra Leone. So he was able to put away a pretty respectable horse in Muth, like I said. And then in his next start, in his first start as a 3-year-old in the Holy Bull, he was pinballed around and kind of, what you alluded to, Joe, about does this horse get the trip and race? Does this horse get the trip that he wants and show up to be the horse that we've seen? And when he got pinballed, he completely spit the bit out in the stretch. He didn't give much of an effort. And as a 1-5 favorite, you really want to see the horse dig in and grind. And we didn't see it there. And, his last start, which I'm sure a lot of people, especially probably people in the chat, have seen the replay, watched this race. He went on to win by 13 lengths in the Florida Derby, and if he runs back to that speed figure completely trumps this field. I don't think even with the horse stepping up, I don't think he runs to that kind of buyer speed figure. But if you look at the way he did it, he broke on top, got the race as entirely his own way. It looked like he was working out. It didn't look like he was in a race. And half the field, if not everybody, was all in. The jocks were shoving their horse coming into the stretch. Meanwhile, Johnny V hadn't moved on fierceness yet, and he just kind of ran away with it. So, yeah, if he runs back to that race, like I said, I mean, I think not only does he win, but I think he wins by open lengths. But we've broken down this race in speed figures and pace figures. I just don't see how he gets that trip from the 16 hole with other speed to his all the way to his inside and one to the outside that drew in with the 21 epic ride.
Yeah. It's Ray saying it too. He's been around racing for a long time. He said that Fierceness is the fastest horse he has ever seen. And yes, his numbers are off the chart, but it's not consistent. And that's the big wild card here, right? And you're in a 20-horse field. And I don't know, does he have enough speed to get out in front and maintain? It's going to be fascinating to see, but he is without a doubt, if he shows up, the consensus is everybody else is playing for running second. But there are some guys in the chat room that are running through a few horses, and one of them is Forever Young. And you had some thoughts on this horse too, number 11. Tell me what you're thinking about this horse.
Yeah, speaking of streaks and curses that are meant to be broken, no Japanese horse has ever come over to the Kentucky Derby and gone on to win the Kentucky Derby. So kind of already against the 8 ball. Same thing with the UAE Derby, which is also the route that this horse went on to get here. But if you look at what this horse has done, the Japanese, the racing over in Japan is nothing to shy away about. There's some really good colts over there. They just haven't, hasn't proved to, be a profitable way to go into the Derby. But he's definitely racing against top quality colts over there. He's 5 for 5 with not only going to Saudi, but then the UAE Derby. And if you look at the way that he does, the way he runs his races, it just seems like this is a professional horse. He tends to know what his job is and to know what's asked about him. He's been wide throughout, was able to chase down the leaders while giving them, absorbent amount of lengths ahead while sweeping 5-6 wide and then running him down while the pace setter was on the rail. That was impressive. And then, in the UAE Derby, kind of getting pinballed around, having to be shoved up. Horses don't like to get in tight places. It didn't seem like not only, did the jock ask this horse to do it, but he saw, the horse seemed to see the opening and want to go through that opening instead of really shy away. And with, a 20-horse field, if you're going and sweeping wide, you're high-fiving the crowd on the way by. There's a lot of horses to sweep by. You gotta be able to cut ground where you can. And, this horse, from what I'm hearing on the backside, is training well. He looks like he loves the track, and the price that we're getting, we're looking at 10-1. I've seen a current odds at as low as 8-1. I think this is definitely a price that, if he runs his race, I think that we could definitely cash a nice ticket on him. Hopefully here in a few hours.
Fortune Not in the chat says, how is the biggest wild card of all this not the track condition today? It was not good yesterday. But the weather, I believe, supposed to be pretty decent today. But they added all sorts of new dirt there. It's all different there now. In case of something like this, but I don't think there's any rain so far. What do they have the track condition listed at here, Sean?
So they opened it at muddy. I would have to double check to make sure it's still set as muddy, but there was actually a few people kind of speculating that, not necessarily Twitter people, but people that are on, boots on the ground on the backside, kind of speculating that it could come up to maybe, not necessarily fast, but maybe a good condition. And we're possibly going to see that fast condition come to Derby. If you watched the races yesterday, it absolutely rained. But these superintendents and the people on the backside, they know what they're doing. they've got their finger on the weather pulse just as much as that we're trying to. They sealed the track yesterday, which essentially means that they're compacting the dirt kind of as much as they can and letting that initial layer of water kind of seep off and go into the draining. Before they started the races today, they actually harrowed the track. And what I mean by that is there's just giant nails that they're dragging behind tractors, and they're opening up the track and they're making it loose. They're trying to get sunlight. They're trying to get warm air on it just to kind of open it up and dry out. So that question's spot on. The first 3 races have been, I wouldn't say speed biased, but definitely leaning towards the front. And it's something to keep an eye on, as especially for the main dirt track, something to keep an eye on as the races progress today.
Yeah, it's a good point here that 3-year-olds don't exactly enjoy eating mud. Some do, most don't there, though. But it's funny because Fortunato brings up the point. He says he thinks the Oaks yesterday was potentially insightful for today's card, depending on what we're going to get with the track conditions by the time we get there. They are doing everything it's in power to be able to try to get this thing as close to raceable. But if it's not, if another storm comes rolling through there, how does it change the handicap for you here?
Yeah, I mean, again, he's spot on. I thought that race also kind of had a very inclination to how the race is going to play out for the Derby today. Just kind of how fast they went. Not only that, but just the way that Torpedo Anna ran away from the field. She's definitely a talented filly, but she seemed to glide over that track. And like you said, if we get a big rainstorm that comes in, the superintendents in the track, the people working the track, are definitely going to have to pivot. They're going to have to keep an eye on that before it rains, so that they can seal the track. And if we see that, it's definitely it's going to play a lot out. It's going to play a lot like how it did yesterday. But a thing to keep in mind especially on Derby Day and the way the track plays, is just the timing between races. Not only do we have an hour and a half between the 11th race and the 12th race, with the 12th race is the Kentucky Derby, but that 11th race is on the turf. So the race right before that, the 10th race, that's 2 hours and a half before the Kentucky Derby is run. So it's going on the track, and they need to work on it. It's definitely going to get worked on while they're, it's not going to get worked on while they're racing the 11th race, but they have all the time in the world to pivot, try to make sure that it's a fair track. They don't want to see, a biased track and all these people, up in arms saying, that this horse wouldn't have won if the track wasn't as biased as it was. So they're going to do their best effort to keep the track as unbiased as they can. But at the end all be all, Mother Nature kind of has the last say, right? Not a lot we can do with Mother Nature.
It's so true. So true. I mean, bottom line is, listen, you got to have a lot of things break your way in a 20-horse field anyway. So that, that's basically what you worry about, what you can control, what you can't control. We do have a couple more questions for you, Sean, but I do want to let you guys know, of course, Sean's full race day card available on his page at WagerTalk.com. $35 right now. You can get everyone, which will be more than just the Derby here, guys. I can promise you that it is a huge day of racing over at Churchill there. Partner up with him now and get that rolling. All right, so we do have, and I love the comment of that this track is sloppier than the chat room. You're absolutely correct. Although this chat room, there is some sloppiness in this chat room. I can tell you that. Bonsai Buckeye in the house looking for, says, spotty in Cincinnati right now, weather-wise. I think it's going to be like that all day in that entire region here of the country. So buckle up. It should be fun. Air Duck 23, what do you think about Endlessly? He seems to like to come on late. There was a few horses, some closers in this race here. Sean, did you like one more than the other here?
Yeah, I absolutely like Endlessly, Air Duck, especially at the price that we're going to see. Like you said, he's a closer that's going to come on, and I don't think that we're going to see necessarily the suicide fractions that we've seen in the last 2 years of the Kentucky Derby. But Dornoch has to go from the rail. He hated being kind of boxed in his last start. The 21 Epic Ride is going to have to be involved. So, I mean, you've got two horses on both sides of the racetrack that kind of want a gun out of the gate and at least set on his pace and set up for those closers. And, you know, a horse like Endlessly, I talked about him on our Pony Pundit show, but this horse was geared and targeted for the turf. He was 3 for 3 in his career before Michael McCarthy pointed him at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Race in a race that he was 5-1. That was a big field. It's a tough race. Didn't do much running, and McCarthy switched him over to the synthetic to get him ready to maybe make a run at the Derby, and obviously got enough points to get in. But yes, you're 100% that this horse is going to come flying late. It's going to need a little bit of a pace to run into, but kind of similar to the 11 not Just a Touch, Forever Young that I really like is in both of those starts, in the El Camino Real Derby and the Jeff Ruby Stakes, the last 2 starts of this 3-year-old year, he went inside horses. He didn't necessarily have to go all the way around to make his run. He was willing to go inside horses and not do that sweeping run. So, like I said, you know, with Traffic Trouble, we want a horse that, you know, isn't going to shy away from, you know, finding a hole and trying to split through it. So if this horse is good enough, gets a pace to run into, you know, I definitely think it's a horse that you can include underneath to spice up your exactas and tries. And, you know, if he trips out like we've seen, you know, horses like Mage and even Rich Strike 2 years ago do, he's definitely not without a shot today.
Nope, not at all. The one horse that also I wouldn't sleep on here, and I know that Just a Touch, the number 8 horse, compared to Mage like last year there, which is never a bad thing. But what about Honor Marie? There seems to be an idea that the Risen Star to the Louisiana Derby was a huge jump. And boy, if it keeps getting better, today could be a big day for Anna Marie, number 7 at what, 20-1? Not a bad price here. If we just keep getting that progression here, not a horse I'd want to sleep on here. Certainly would be on my card today.
Yeah, you know, again, it's going to be another horse that comes from the back, and you know, there's not a lot to knock on the way that he ran that Louisiana Derby. Just wasn't able to run down Catching Freedom, who is another one of kind of my, I wouldn't say top choice, but I really like Catching Freedom. So if you like Catching Freedom, you know, what's not to like about, you know, Honor Marie that was just a length behind him. And, you know, these are races that were, you know, it's not necessarily his last race that he ran, but if you look at the way that he ran his 2-year-old campaigns, he was coming from the back, and he did it with soft fractions. You know, you see those blue numbers on your DRF report. That's time for him basically saying that those are slow fractions for the level and the distance that they're running. So, you know, he didn't do much running in the Risen Star, but he was able to run huge in the Kentucky Jockey Club, which was running over the Churchill track. So not a horse to sleep on. We're already getting money on that horse. I'm seeing live odds at 12-1. So, you know, I wouldn't talk you off that horse. But with a 20 horse field, you definitely have to, you know, you gotta make your cuts where you can, or else you're gonna, you know, you're going to need to take a loan out just to play a trifecta.
And Proud Sausage Boy over on Instagram, don't. Proud Sausage Boy over on IG says, Sierra Leone, follow Sierra Leone here. But I'm not a believer. Are you a believer in Sierra Leone? I mean, it, you know, looks the part. It looks great on paper. But again, out of that 2 spot, a lot could go wrong very quickly for Sierra Leone in this race.
Yeah, a lot can absolutely go wrong. Like I said, you know, kind of hinted at the number 1 Dornick, good old Jim. Number 1 Dornick's got to shove from there. If he takes a little bit of a misstep, he could bump into Sierra Leone. He's going to have 18 other horses to his outside, so who knows what's going to happen as far as the break goes. But I'm not a believer in Sierra Leone. A lot of people, first off, always think, oh, he's stretching out a little bit longer. That's going to influence his late kick. That's not always the case. And in fact, it's usually the opposite. It usually kind of points to horses that are already up and near the pace or sitting that mid pack that are able to get that kind of that next panel. But if you watch this horse's replays, I wouldn't say he reminds me of Zenyatta, but watching Zenyatta break from the gate and go first time past the grandstand, she kind of danced and looked at the crowd and kind of gave, her little showmanship, best effort, not best effort, but best dancing moves first time around. And Sierra Leone in the last 2 races, he just looks like he's climbing, not necessarily out of the gate, but he's climbing into stride. What I mean by that is he's not necessarily digging into the ground. His front hooves are kind of coming up, and it almost looks like he's jumping into his stride. I don't know if that's taking a lot out of him, if that's why he's so far back before. But the next thing that I don't necessarily like is he's in both of those races in his 3-year-old year, he struggled to switch leads, and especially for a horse that's coming from the back and needs that turn of foot. Switching leads is what really influences that turn of foot. And when a horse struggles to switch leads, it drifts all the way around the track. And, if you're trying to pass 19-ish horses and you're drifting around the track, you're probably bumping around. You're not necessarily getting into stride where you need to be. And to run down horses like Fierceness and a horse that I like and Forever Young and even Catching Freedom, to run down horses that are, have the pedigree and they are going to run as well as that we think they're going to run in. That's actually the kind of the favorite that I'm going to toss just to kind of get coverage elsewhere and hopefully make my tickets pay a little bit more if they come to be right at the end of the Derby.
Yeah, I saw him at the Fountain of Youth, and there were 5 horses in that race. Now he's going to be on the rail. And he's going to have that's going to be a pretty physical change for him compared to what he's raced in. So, but I'll tell you this, you give Luis Saez, you want to talk about crushing the fractions and just making it so nobody can get to the back. Yeah, that's Luis Saez on top of Dornoch there. So either way, should be an amazing race day here. And your card is loaded because I think the distaff here today, you got more than just a Kentucky Derby there, Sean. What else you got right now on your page at WagerTalk.com? $35 and you get what now?
Yeah, just right now I've just got my my absolute full Derby card, full selections, suggested wagers. The card has already begun, so get in now if you're looking to get in. So you're going to basically have race 5 through race 14. Wagers that I like throughout the sequences, my top selections, and just kind of how I would attack the card based on whether or not you like to play exactas, trifectas, win wagers, pick 5s, kind of got it all for you. So get in now, and hopefully we have the same success that we saw last year in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it, guys. Jump on board, partner up with Sean now. Head over to WagerTalk.com. And again, it's like an hour and a half in between races. So it's going to happen all day long. You're going to have a lot going on, but definitely keep an eye on the weather and what they're doing with the track, because that is, as Fortune said it, that's going to be the biggest the biggest variance here today to see what's happening. But either way, it has been extremely profitable, the Kentucky Derby, the last couple of years. You get those first 4 horses right. We're talking phone book numbers here. It's worth a couple of bucks to throw out there. And it's also worth checking out the full Kentucky Derby race preview in the description below. Check out that link. Pony Pundits, Sean, Marco, and myself. We broke down this race and the 4 horses that these guys like and expect to finish at the top of the board. So a lot going on here today, guys. It has been fantastic. Just go ahead and hit that thumbs up if you could. We'd much appreciate it. Those of you joining us on YouTube, those on Instagram, like Proud Sausage Boy. Always a pleasure to see you there, my man. Hit the follow button. We got more great daily sports wagering content for you coming all week long. So Bonsai, Buckeye, pleasure to see you again. Also, Air Duct, Brahma B, Andrew, Ray, James White, you guys, all the best. We appreciate you stopping by here today. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, but make plans to come back and join us once again for another edition of a full week, in fact, of NBA and Major League Baseball playoff action coming up. This is just the start of the Triple Crown. Could we have a Triple Crown winner this year? We'll have much more on that for you as well. Best of luck with your plays today, guys. We'll talk to you again soon.